They say experience is the best teacher, and unfortunately, that had to be true in my situation of adopting our three awesome kids from foster care. And I had to learn some lessons the hard way because I didn't really have anyone guiding me through how to do this whole adoption and adoptive parenting thing. So today, I'm gonna let my experience teach you so that you don't have to learn from experience in a bad way like I did. Well, I'm sure I made many mistakes along the way as an adoptive parent, and I'm still making them daily, I am sure. Today, we're gonna talk about the top 5 mistakes I made as a first-time adoptive parent. So let's jump on in. Hey there, if you are new here, my name is Katie, and I'm an adoptive mom to 3 awesome kids who are currently ages 7, 11, and 15, which still blows my mind. And now I work as an adoption consultant, and I help families from all across the country survive and thrive on their adoption journey, which is why I'm going to share those 5 big mistakes that I made. But before I do that really quick, I just want to let you know that I run an adoption support group called Adopt Together. This is a faith-based Facebook community built for adoptive parents like you. Each month, get access to video trainings, live group coaching calls, and real practical resources to help your family thrive. Go from feeling confused and lost in your adoptive parenting to feeling confident. And not only do you get all of those great resources and training videos and coaching, but this is a private, well-moderated Facebook group where you can share openly about what is going on in your home and be met with encouragement, support, advice from other people like you who really understand what you're going through. And that to me is invaluable. The reason I bring this up is my group is reopening later in September, and so I don't want you to miss out. So join the waitlist. In the description box below, you will find the link to join the waitlist, and those who join the waitlist will have an opportunity to get $5 off their first month of their subscription. So check that out. But now, what you really came here for, let's jump into the video. So number one thing that I did the wrong way was having too much fun at the beginning. Now hear me out. Having fun is great. It's wonderful. We want to build fun memories with our kids, but you can overdo it, and oftentimes, it's not really taught to you in your adoption trainings, or it's not even brought up to you by caseworkers that you should be careful about the stuff you do in those early adoptive visits or when your kids first come home with you. When we first met our older 2 kids, the caseworkers actually were the ones to suggest where we went, and they suggested a place called Skate World. Don't know if you've heard of it. It's a chain of some sort. It's a huge skating rink. There were also bouncy houses and climbing things and an arcade. And let me tell you, it is one of the most overstimulating environments you can imagine. I'm still a little confused why the caseworkers recommended this, other than I do think they have some sort of deal because sometimes they do family visits there. But wow, for a first time out of the house with our adopted kids, it was a bad idea. As I said, it was super overstimulating, and we had 3 kids with us because we had already had our youngest adopted daughter, and we were visiting our older 2 kids that we were getting ready to adopt. And it was like we walked in there and 3 different things started happening. You know, our youngest daughter wanted us to hold her and want us to do things. Our son, who wasn't our son at the time, but we were getting to know him, ran off into the distance. So my husband had to go chase after him because he wanted to go straight to the bouncy castles. And then my oldest was trying to get skates on, convincing me that she had skated before, when later we found out that was not true. It was absolutely chaotic. And the whole time, you know, there's an arcade, so they're asking for money for the arcade, so we're giving a little, and then they want more, and then they want prizes. And it was just a lot. And I also didn't really feel like we got to spend time with them because we were more watching them do activities. I know other things a lot of families will do early on is like go to a trampoline park. And I don't think there's anything wrong with that. I actually think in some ways that could be better than Skate World in my experience. But they might go out to eat a lot. They might go do mini golf or bowling or just these really fun activities. And here's the problem. It can be, number 1, very overstimulating for your child. Number 2, we're dealing with kids who've never been a part of a quote unquote normal family. And so each time you're getting together with them, you are showing them what a normal family does. And if you are starting off in all of those early visits or the first couple weeks they move in with you, going from one fun activity that's kind of expensive to another, guess what they're going to think normal families do all the time? That's right. They're going to think normal families go out to eat all the time. They go to these big, expensive, fun things to do all the time. And what you can accidentally do is set a precedent that you can't maintain. And most of us can't in this economy, right? Taking our kids to do all these fun, out of the house activities that cost money all the time. So that is definitely a mistake that we made. We did a lot at the beginning of like, we're going to pick pumpkins here, and we're going to mini golf here, and we're going to the trampoline park here. And yes, I have good memories of those times, but we also dealt with a lot of difficulties of our kids not really understanding how much we could do those things on a regular basis. And again, very overstimulating, very overwhelming, which moves me into my next point, because my second big mistake that I made was completely overscheduling our family in those early days. Now, don't get me wrong, we were scheduling our days with good things. They were things that are helpful, are useful, are fun. So even things like therapy appointments or social skills classes or being in gymnastics or trying out soccer, all of these things are good things, right? But it's not good if you're so overwhelmed as a family, you don't even spend time together as a family. I don't know if you know how uncommon it is for people to sit down at the dinner table together, but I know of so many parents with their kids in all these different activities, and all the activities are good things, right? They're all things their kids enjoy or that they're excited to see their kids do, but you end up in a place where you almost never have any time to just decompress at home and have fun at home. And we were definitely in that zone for a while after we brought home our older two kids. When we had our youngest daughter with us, she came to us when she was about 1.5. It was easy. We weren't putting her in a bunch of activities, and then COVID happened, so we were kind of stuck at home anyway. But with our older two kids, I felt this need to schedule them in all these things. So multiple types of therapies. I felt the need to schedule them in an activity at one time, because I'm like, well, they've never been able to do this before. I want them to have this opportunity. And my heart was in the right place, but I learned very quickly how burnt out it was making my kids, my husband, and me. We were rarely getting to sit down and enjoy an evening meal together all at once. We were eating out more. We were running from work to pick up kids, to take them here, to take them there. Then we had church activities. It was just too much. And again, all those things were good things, but it was really, really overstimulating. And the third big mistake I made was expecting too much of not only my kids, but of myself. And I think that whole overscheduling thing kind of falls into this. Like, I thought that I could handle all of these activities at once. And I thought my kids would love it. I thought they would just thrive in all these activities, not understanding that they needed space to breathe, and so did I. But I also had unrealistic expectations on my kids, maybe with their behaviors, or, I'd oftentimes be looking at developmental ages, because I was a teacher for many years. I'm thinking by this age, kids are supposed to be able to do this, or they're supposed to behave this way, and not always remembering the fact that trauma impacts that emotional age of our kids. And so sometimes my expectations were too high because of what my child had been through in the past. And I had to kind of learn to lower my expectations. I also think a lot of parents struggle with having unrealistic expectations of how quickly their children will show progress. So I think it's easy to think that once we're in a really calm environment, once our kids have lived with us, they'll start to feel safe, and a lot of their behaviors will kind of dissipate. The truth is, it takes years and years to see progress sometimes. So it's easy to get discouraged and think, well, I thought my kids were going to be doing better than this at this time, when that's not really fair to put that on them. In the same way, we put a lot of pressure on ourselves. And I know a big mistake I made was expecting myself to bond instantaneously with my children, when realizing this is kind of a strange thing we're doing. Like, it's going to take time. They're going to have to trust me. I'm going to have to keep showing up for them. It's going to take time before we're going to build that bond. But I know I put a lot of guilt and shame on myself that wasn't happening instantaneously. And I also put a lot of pressure on myself to be this great, amazing parent, because I'd been a teacher, I'd been a camp counselor, I'd worked with kids all my life. I'm an older sibling, and I'm like, I am great with kids. This is going to be a breeze for me. Not a breeze necessarily, but I definitely thought that I was more uniquely cut out for it than maybe some other people would. But oh man, did I struggle. I struggled so much. I never anticipated the level of anxiety that would arise. in me becoming a mom. I also learned very quickly that the wonderful things that they say in the parenting books can work, but there are times where I wasn't living up to my expectations because when I read them, I was like, oh, I can do that. I'll be just fine. When the truth is, okay, it's actually a lot harder than that when I'm in the moment. I put a lot of pressure on myself to be this perfectly patient mom who never lost her cool, who always showed up for her kids, who was enjoying every moment because she had waited so long to bring these kids into her home. And the truth was, I let myself down a lot, but again, because I had unrealistic expectations. And I don't think I'm the only person who deals with that, those unrealistic expectations of ourselves, and letting myself down has always been harder for me than my kids letting me down, right? Because when my kids haven't met my unrealistic expectations of them, I can kind of say, okay, I think my expectations were unrealistic. How can I refocus and like shift my mindset? When I let down myself and I don't meet my own expectations of myself, I have a lot harder time shifting my focus and being able to see it differently. I just tend to get hard on myself. And so that is a huge mistake that I made that kept me from reaching my full potential as an adoptive mom, because I was just in this cycle of shame. Number 4 is kind of funny, but one big problem I made was expecting parenting books would solve all of my problems. And I guess this could go for like parenting videos, like maybe like this as well. I was an avid adoption and foster care book reader. I read a lot of books before we adopted. I read a lot of blogs. I read all sorts of things because I wanted to get a really good idea of what I was getting myself into. I wanted to be prepared. I mean, my channel's called Adopt Informed for a reason. I know there are people who are like me out there who want to learn this stuff before they jump in. And obviously I see a place for it or I wouldn't be making this video. However, the problem I've fallen into, and maybe you watching this video will fall into this as well, is thinking, well, if I read the books or I watch the videos, then I will be fine. And the truth is, we're not guaranteed that. Reading the books, watching the videos, I think is a great way to prepare. I think it's a great way to help yourself set realistic expectations rather than some of those unrealistic ones. However, I've read a lot of great books. I talk about the connected child a lot on here. People think of it as like the adoptive parenting Bible. It's a great book. It has some great things. I will also tell you, it has not worked for all of my kids. For some of my kids, it works wonders. For another one of my children, it really has almost never worked. Certain things I can pull out of there and use, but overall, it's not really been that effective with this child. Because here's the thing, books can be well researched, they can be great, but they can't predict how each individual child will react to whatever method you're trying to use. And I think it's important to approach our children not as like test subjects or like just a number in a statistic or a study, but as a human who has all these individual traits and they have their own free will and they might respond differently. And something that works amazingly well for one kid might be terrible for another kid. It might not work at all. I know we have experienced that with our pretty different personalities of kids within our family, and we've had to adjust from there. But I was so hard on myself, like, why? I must just not be doing it well enough. I need to double down and try it even harder. I need to, apparently I need to read more and learn more. And I was seeking out so much information. And as you probably know, there's a lot of conflicting information or really, really strongly opinionated information about parenting in general, and especially about adoptive parenting online. I felt like I was just in a tornado of information, and it was like one person says do this, the other person says do this, and if I do this, I'm horrible. And it just felt like there was no winning. And so at some point, I had to mute all of those things in my life. I unfollowed so many people on Instagram. Now I'm barely even on Instagram ever, but I found that was a huge place where I was seeing this short form content, trying to give you, information about adoption and foster care and like parenting, and you just can't get to the depth of that in that short form content. So it would often be very guilt inducing. I had to withdraw from that. So that was definitely a mistake I made, thinking that if I read all the things and watched all the things, everything would be fine. And the truth is, it's going to be hard, and there are things that aren't going to work according to the books, and that's okay. And my fifth and final big mistake I made was trying to do it all by myself. Now, obviously, I'm married. I wasn't doing it all by myself. My husband was there. He's very supportive. But I was not really interacting with other adoptive parents outside of just my husband. And I would often use the excuse of like, I'm an introvert. I don't want to use my free time when my kids are in bed to be talking about parenting with other people or like meeting up with other parents and whatever, because I'm like, I need that time. The truth was, I needed the support and I needed the community, and I did not have it. I did things like go to counseling, which did help, but I still, even in counseling, because I had a really hard time finding any sort of counselor that was an adoptive parent or, was in the adoption world much. Even in counseling, I was just like, I wish this is great, but I wish I had other adoptive parents I could talk to. And, our agency offered a free support group. It was very far away from our house, and our daughter had a bedtime. It was all in person. And then even some of the adoptive moms I knew, they were so busy with their own issues. It was so hard to set a time where we could all get together in person. When we did, it fed my soul. It was amazing. It helped me understand how not alone I was in my struggles as an adoptive parent. I thought I was the only one. I thought everyone else was doing just fine and dandy. And that was not the case. There was actually a lot of struggling going on with them as well that I could relate to. But again, I had a desire to get together with those women more. They were so busy. We were all so busy that our schedules just didn't really work in a way that we could all get childcare and all get into one place. And so I was left very alone in that. And so as you can imagine, that's a huge reason why I started this channel, because I wanted to be here to give information and encouragement and advice and support to you guys who are walking this path. And you are maybe a little earlier in the process than I am. I'm a little bit farther down the road now, and I feel this responsibility to share that with you. And so that is why I created my group, Adopt Together. It's a space where you don't have to drive anywhere. You don't have to go in person. You don't have to schedule around a bunch of stuff. It is a safe space to come with your troubles as an adoptive parent, with your worries and your fears and your questions, and have a community of people around you who understand and can support you. Because if there's one thing I can tell you, adoptive parenting is hard, but it's a lot easier when you have a community. When I think about those nights where I would just cry in my bed and think, I'm the only parent who feels this way. There must be something wrong with me. Why is adoptive parenting not coming in as easily to me as I'd hoped? And just to find out later that what I was feeling was actually so normal, but no one was available to talk about it. There was no place I could go and do that. And so I created my own. And so I hope that you will consider joining us in Adopt Together when the doors open on September 21st. This is a faith-based group. Anyone is welcome to join, but please know that this is a Christian-based group. So if you're uncomfortable with that, no problem. But if you're interested in having that support in your back pocket, obviously it's a Facebook community, we would absolutely love for you to join. So please take a second if you're interested and click the link in the description box below, and you will get on the wait list for the group so that when the doors open, you will be the very first notified. You will get $5 off the first month of your membership. And there's another bonus that's only going to be available to waitlist members that you're not going to want to miss out on. So get on that list so you can figure out what that is. Anyway, I hope you are having an amazing day. Thank you so much for watching, and I will see you very soon.